All right, it's time to talk basketball. I'm Jose Salviati, editor at thepeachbasket.net. He's Steve Purciello, a longtime educator, vice principal, high school basketball coach, and athletic director. And this is the Shot Clock Pod, the best 15 minutes of NBA random thoughts online. If this is your first time listening, welcome. We're glad you found us. This podcast was born out of the content of Steve's 13 Rules Random NBA Thoughts articles, which he publishes weekly. Steve and I have exactly 15 minutes to discuss what's on his mind around the NBA. Today, we'll discuss his latest 13 Rules Random NBA Thoughts article, where he shares his thoughts as the NBA Finals continue. It's been a good one, tied 2-2 as we record this show. Steve, are you ready?
Ready.
Let's start the timer, and we're off. All right. A lot was made of the Pacers winning game one in dramatic fashion and taking home court advantage away from the Thunder. The Thunder had a must-win game in game four. They have the MVP in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He had to show up, and he did. And you called it out in your article. In a must-win game for his team, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was special. So what did you like about his play in that game four, with really the series on the line?
All the great players, when they have to, they come up big. I'm thinking back a couple of years ago in Giannis in the finals. I guess it was game 6 or so, where he just took over. His team hasn't played well. Oklahoma City has not played nearly as well as how they played during this regular season. But he put the team on his back in the last 5 minutes of that game and just won the game. They were losing and they put him away, all because 15 out of 16 points, the last 16 points, 11 straight. He just said, "Come on, boys, here we go. We're going somewhere." And he did it. And to become what he's considered one of the best basketball players in the NBA, to be that, you have to come through like that when it counts like that. And he did it. There's nothing else to say. You're witnessing greatness when you see something like that go on.
Yeah. It's so interesting. And again, for those who have listened for a while, you might know I'm in the LA area. Steve is in the East Coast. And Shea, of course, was drafted by the Los Angeles Clippers, played a great game here for the Clippers in the playoffs against the Golden State Warriors. You saw how good he could be. But when the rubber hit the road, they had to make a decision. They wanted Kawhi. Kawhi wanted Paul George. To get Paul George, you had to give up Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Nobody in the franchise here wanted to do it, but they did it. There's a lot of conversation. This is off script, Steve. This is not something we just plan on talking about. But when you elevated Shai to superstar status, and I wouldn't argue with that, it stings for folks here out in LA. I made the argument 99 times out of 100, you make that trade, because Shai was, if you knew then what you know now, you don't make the trade. No doubt. But nobody knew then.
There's a barometer with that. And it didn't happen, if the team wins a title, that's a rough. But the Clippers never won a title, so it's not a good deal. It would be a good deal if everybody wants to win a title. So if they would have won a title, you'd say, "Oh, what a great deal." Not a great deal, but this is the price you pay. But that's where the whole thing gets a little muddied.
No doubt. And out here, again, in LA, from an LA perspective, the year to win it was 2020. But that was when the world turned upside down. And then you had to go to the bubble, and mentally, I guess the Clippers weren't strong enough to handle it. Everything fell apart. But that team was good enough to win a championship. But it's just, as a fan here of Shai, you love to see his elevated play, that every single time he does something spectacular, it stings. But let me ask you this, because this is the flip side of this, I think. Undeniably a superstar. But when I think of somebody like, let's say, Anthony Edwards, spectacular, dynamic, Jokic doing historical things we haven't seen in the NBA decades, if ever, there's nothing about Shai that is spectacular. You know what I mean? He's just really good at everything. Would you agree with that? He's not a great passer. He's not a great shooter. He's not a great facilitator, but he's just really good at everything. A weird superstar, right?
And going back to the Clippers when they traded him, I'm sure people saw this guy could be very good or great or what. We, as somewhat fans, we're not aware of the work ethic and the other things that go into it. And we don't know what's inside him unless we talk to him and watch and see over a period of time. Evidently, this guy is not happy with where he is and continues to get better. other people who have been given a lot of talent might not have had that push. And you'll always read, there's always an article somewhere about the guy who knew he was very good, but geez, I wish I would have worked harder and so on. I does. And from what all accounts are, as a teammate, he's tremendous. And these are all the attributes you want in someone on your team. So I'm sure OKC, when they dealt for him, understood what kind of person he was. And
Yeah.
that's an important piece to this, because there's a lot of great players or talented players that were traded that really didn't pan out and worked out.
Yeah. Let's work it out for OKC. And we've got a series, which is cool, which will likely go 7. We'll see. Let's go back. Let's talk a little bit about the other team, the Indiana Pacers, who have been great in this series. A lot has been made because of the Luka trade that the defense wins championships. But, and you called this out in your article, it's hard, if not impossible, to stop a great offensive player when he's on a roll, like Shea was in that game. But you made a point to call out Nembhard for his defense on SGA. He was just a little bit better than Nembhard's defense. So I'm going to ask you point blank, right? And we've talked about this before, but does defense really win championships when you can have a great offensive player that you are not going to stop?
That's a great question. I think it does, but I think it's sometimes the great players, you're not going to stop offense. But I just think look at the first 3 games, Nembhard wore him down. He was tired. He had so at the end of games, well documented that he was running out of gas and so on. Now, and I wrote about this. Dash made a little adjustment. He didn't bring the ball all the time, because bringing the ball up doesn't tax you. But the fact that Nembhard was guarding him all 90 feet made him work to bring the ball up. So those kind of things were the adjustment that maybe got him over the top. But going back to the defense, you know what? Good defense, I always think, will win in the long haul. But you're going to when you got a guy as good as him. Again, good defense against an average team, you're usually with some offense, with enough offense, you're going to win. You're going up against a star. Sometimes it just doesn't, it's not enough. I'll take the defense, though, from players.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. I think you've got to be able to defend when, it's time. When you've got a tie game, the other team's got the ball, and you've got to lock down for a possession. You've got to be able to do that. And what's interesting about this series is both teams are really good in that scenario. So it's just somebody's going to break, and we'll see how it plays out.
Also, another piece to it. Are you going to double him to get the ball out of his hands? And if you do, here, the Celtics a couple of years ago against Miami, they gambled on Butler, and they were running some doubles at him and all. And they were letting Martin shoot. Martin killed him. So did Vincent. He killed him because they were getting open shots and they were hitting him. So sometimes your gamble could pay off. I don't know if Indiana will decide to begin to try to get the ball out of Shea's hands, or they'll just continue to play it the way they're playing it. And the point being, there's 5 people. And the term the NBA uses, have all players on a string. That means able to help recover and do all the that need to be done. And now maybe they're going to have to make an adjustment to figure out if this guy we can't let him get off on us. So we have to do something else. But you need all 5 guys. You can't just have one. And I think the Knicks are a great example of it. They have 2 bad defenders, and teams went at them continuously. So it's just a normal way of thing. But you got to have everybody playing on a string.
Yeah. And I appreciate the softball setup here. We are going to talk about the Knicks now. We'll leave the finals aside because there's a lot more going on. Actually, a big trade today, which is interesting. So the ball is rolling, the offseason has started. But what were the Knicks thinking? Now, you talked about this before. You wrote about it extensively, but we got to talk about it a little bit. It looks like their plan was to fire a successful coach in Tom Thibodeau and then ask for permission from teams that have coaches that are under contract. Was that the plan? What's going on in New York?
Here's a surprise. Thibodeau's got a grating personality. I don't think a lot of people liked him in the higher up. That's including the owner. So they were looking for reasons for years on this, or for a year or two, whatever it is. But they've been looking for reasons. That was a decision they were going to make. Unless the Knicks won the title, they were going to do this. No, that's fine. But you know what? And some smart GM once said, there's always, I have a list of coaches just in case, like that I can try to hire.
Interesting.
And
Right.
the point being, you're going to do that. You know you're
Mhm.
going to do it, or you're thinking about doing it if they don't win the whole thing. You should have a list. And then
Right.
the Knicks showed their arrogance by going out and trying to go to 5 different teams. It's so absurd that they would even try to do this, and they might get lucky. And by the way, they're a dysfunctional mess. They might get lucky here, get a coach, win a title. They might. And that
Mhm.
be okay, then everything's fine. But I think this thing, that dysfunction takes a mark on everybody. I heard PJ Carlissimo call them out for what they're doing, and a few other people in the NBA circle have called them out. And just stupid. And I'm not a Nick lover, but what I'll say this though, I watched all the years of them being terrible. And I thought to myself, you know what? It's a mess. The whole situation's a mess. Leon Rose came in. No, he doesn't talk to the press. He doesn't talk. However, and that's wrong. However, they got better. He made good trade.
Mhm.
The team, and I started thinking, oh, the bad days of the Knicks are over. You know what? They might come through this and they might do okay. But I hate to say it, it's the same old Knicks. And meaning the stupidity and just the moves. As a person who doesn't, as I said, doesn't like the Knicks, I didn't want. I'm glad they fired Thibodeau because he's a good coach. He's a good coach. Anytime a team plays him, they're going to have a game because they're going to play hard for him every time. So he might not be great X's and O's. He might not. He's a good defensive coach, but he might not be the greatest offensive coach. But there's going to be a game. That team comes and plays. When guys get hurt, no matter what, they show. So that's something they lost. Good luck. I hope they get something that can bring them back.
Let's see how things work out in New York. Tibbs is one of those coaches who has an expiration date. I think at
Oh,
some point, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm surprised the Knicks didn't call Pat Riley. I'm sure he would have wanted to help the Knicks with Spoelstra, but I guess they didn't.
Let's talk about another East Coast team, the Milwaukee Bucks. You had some nice things to say about Giannis, who is now expressing an interest in staying, because it is nice. It's refreshing to see a superstar say, I want to stay. It's a small market team. I've won one. I want two. There's value there for sure. Let's say he stays, and you called out, he might change his mind. And of course, who knows what's going to happen. But if he does stay, what's the path forward? I don't see one in Milwaukee.
The team's got to they're going to take a hit next year. They've got to reset themselves with because they don't have a lot of draft picks. Positive is the Eastern Division, Eastern Conference is weak. And Boston is done until Tatum returns. And you don't know what there's going to be left after all the trading. Orlando's making moves. If Mancaro continues to improve, they made the trade today. They could be dangerous, real dangerous. Indiana's good. So there's a whole bunch of teams that the Knicks can contend. One of the teams we don't even think about is Philadelphia. And Philadelphia, if Embiid is somewhat healthy, they're really good.
Yeah.
But going back to Giannis, in today's players, there's no value in playing for one team for your whole career. It's shop yourself and go to another winning team. You don't gut it out. And I don't think that's good. So when you see Giannis do this, boy, that's refreshing. I mean, that's really great to see because this guy, and he means so much to Milwaukee, the city, as well as the team. And he understands. I'm sure maybe down the road he'll want to get out. I hope not. But it just makes you respect his value system a lot more than many of the players in the game. Kevin Durant, every time if you blink, he's looking to get traded. Guys like that, LeBron, he picked the team so he can win a title. I didn't see Jordan doing that.
Yeah.
Those are admirable qualities for a player to have.
Yeah. And again, let's see if it plays out this way. But right now, most recently, I think he was in Brazil when he expressed his interest in staying. It'll be interesting to see. I think Milwaukee's got, like you said, a bumpy road ahead, but if they could keep Giannis in the fold, I think that's a win for the NBA. Certainly, and for Milwaukee.
I want to make a point. I understand it's a business, and I think fans are beginning to.
Yeah.
And I'm going to show you the other side. A couple of years ago, I guess it was 2013, Boston had an old Pierce and Garnett. Now, I would think Pierce wanted to go out with the Celtics, but Danny Ainge, and it was a shrewd deal. He got those picks that became Tatum and Brown, traded them. The team isn't always loyal to the player. So in some ways, I can understand a player
Sure.
wanting to get out.
Yeah. No, again, it's easy to see both sides. At the end of the day, you love seeing somebody like Dirk stay in Dallas, Kobe in LA. For some reason, I can't think of anybody.
Not many of them in today's game.
There's not many. There's not many.
And Kobe for a while was talking, he wanted out.
Oh, yeah. He came very close to signing with, I think, Memphis, the Clippers, but it just never happened.
Yeah, that's where you go back to a Jordan and you're like, wow, he stayed and he didn't like the general manager. He didn't like a lot of things, but he was there. And he didn't have anything to say in who they brought in as players because that was Krause's baby and he didn't want to give power.
Yeah.
And he shut his mouth, played, and he was great, of course, but
he won a few championships.
Yeah, not bad. I think there's a couple players with a few more, but yeah, he in the modern game, I guess he did. Although, I think what is LeBron 2 behind him?
I think so. Yeah.
LeBron sells himself to the right team for the next year or two. Might be able to pull it off.
We'll leave that for another day because there's he just posted a very cryptic Instagram video. I don't know if you saw it where a reporter asked him, and it's totally a mock-up. It's totally staged. The reporter asked him, is there truth to these retirement rumors? And he says, and then it cuts to black or something. So he's fishing. There's something going on.
I think the reason LeBron is a physical marvel, but I think the reason he stays, he loves this attention. When it is his last year, if he starts next season without saying he's done, he's not retiring. Because he is going to announce it. He's going to get gifts in every state arena he's in, and he is going to play that to the hilt.
Was Kareem the last one to do that? Because I remember Kareem's goodbye tour. Every spot he had something. It was pretty cool as a fan.
Kareem, he wasn't as outspoken.
He hated it, I would think. Yeah, they did that for him because they felt that they needed to. But he was the last player, I think, that had a going-away tour.
LeBron will, that he loves the media. Like, he likes to play games with the media. Last year, he talked about, I don't know what I'm doing, and all that garbage. And it's LeBron. What could you say?
Yeah, I'm in agreement. And I do know Kobe made his decision to retire, but he didn't have, at every stop, he didn't have a going-away party like Kareem did, and that's what I was referring to. But let's see how it plays out. It'll be interesting. The 2024-25 NBA season is almost over, which is crazy. Our show is over. You heard the buzzer go off. Please make sure to read Steve's entire 13 Rules Random NBA Thoughts article. We'll link it wherever you're watching and listening to the show to get all of his thoughts after the NBA first 4 games of the NBA Finals. Join us next week as Steve shares his thoughts as the NBA Finals continue and might even be over. We'll see. And of course, please consider subscribing, liking, sharing. All that stuff matters. It goes a long way, and we're grateful for it. Again, join us next week on the Shot Clock Pod, the best 15 minutes of NBA random thoughts online anywhere. We'll talk next week. Thanks, Steve.